Have you ever had a moment when your entire world shifted in just 5 words? Today's story will break your heart, and then put it back together in ways you never expected. If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that touch the soul. The restaurant lights dimmed as Michael checked his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. 8 years of being a single dad had taught him patience, but tonight, nervousness had the upper hand. This was his first real date since Sarah's mother had walked out when their daughter was just 2 years old. "Dad, stop fidgeting," Sarah whispered from across the table, her 10-year-old eyes wise beyond their years. "Ms. Reynolds is going to love you. Everyone does." Michael smiled at his daughter, his heart swelling with gratitude. Sarah had been the one to suggest he finally start dating again. She'd even helped him pick out his navy button-down shirt, insisting it brought out his eyes. What had he done to deserve such an amazing kid? "I just want to make a good impression," he admitted, straightening the silverware that was already perfectly aligned. "Ms. Reynolds is special." "I know," Sarah said with a knowing smile. "That's why I picked her." Michael laughed, remembering how his daughter had orchestrated this whole thing. Ellie Reynolds was Sarah's 4th-grade teacher, and for months, Sarah had been dropping not-so-subtle hints about how "Ms. Reynolds asks about you all the time, Dad," and "Ms. Reynolds is single too, you know." When the parent-teacher conference had run 30 minutes over because he and Ellie couldn't stop talking, Michael had finally worked up the courage to ask her to dinner. To his surprise and delight, she'd said yes immediately. "There she is," Sarah whispered excitedly, her eyes fixed on the restaurant entrance. Michael turned and felt his breath catch. Ellie Reynolds was stunning in a simple blue dress, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She spotted them and smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had first caught his attention months ago. "I should go now," Sarah said, gathering her small backpack. Their neighbor Mrs. Chen was waiting outside to take Sarah for the evening, giving Michael space for his date. "You sure you're okay with this?" Michael asked, suddenly hesitant. Sarah rolled her eyes in that preteen way she'd recently perfected. "Dad, I've been trying to get you to date Ms. Reynolds for forever. I'm more than okay." She hugged him quickly, then skipped toward the door, high-fiving Ellie as they passed each other. Michael watched the brief exchange with amusement, wondering what secret message his daughter might be passing along. "She's something else," Ellie said as she sat down across from him, her eyes following Sarah's departure. "She's my whole world," Michael replied honestly. "I can tell. You've done an amazing job with her, Michael. Not many single parents manage as well as you have." Michael felt warmth spread through his chest at her words. "It hasn't always been easy, but she makes it worth it." The waiter appeared with menus, and the evening began to unfold like a dream. Conversation flowed effortlessly between them, jumping from favorite books to childhood memories to embarrassing teaching stories. Michael couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed so much or felt so comfortable with someone new. "So," Ellie said after their entrees arrived, "Sarah mentioned that her mom isn't in the picture?" Michael nodded, taking a sip of his wine. "She left when Sarah was 2. Said motherhood wasn't what she expected." He shrugged, the old pain dulled by time. "We got a postcard from California about a year later, then nothing. No child support, no birthday calls, nothing." "I'm sorry," Ellie said, her hand briefly touching his across the table. "That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was, at first. But honestly, we found our rhythm. Sarah and we're a team." He smiled, thinking of their nightly ritual of hot chocolate and story time, of Saturday morning pancake competitions and Sunday afternoon bike rides. "What about you? Ever been married?" A shadow crossed Ellie's face, so quickly he almost missed it. "No, never married. I came close once, but..." She trailed off, then smiled brightly. "Let's just say it wasn't meant to be." Something in her tone made Michael curious, but he didn't push. Everyone had their stories, they're scars. If tonight went well, and it certainly seemed to be, there would be time for those deeper conversations. And the night did go well. Extraordinarily well. They shared dessert, their forks playfully battling for the last bite of chocolate cake. They talked until the restaurant began closing around them, neither wanting the evening to end. "Would you like to take a walk?" Michael suggested as they stepped outside into the cool spring air. "There's a nice path along the river just a block over." Ellie nodded, her smile soft in the streetlight. "I'd like that." They strolled side by side, their hands occasionally brushing until Michael gathered his courage and gently took hers. Her fingers intertwined with his, warm and right. "I've had an amazing time tonight," he said as they paused at a viewpoint overlooking the water, the city lights reflecting like stars on its surface. "Me too," Ellie replied, turning to face him. "I've wanted this for a long time, Michael." "Really? Since when?" "Since the first day of school, when you walked Sarah to my classroom. You were so attentive with her, making sure she had everything she needed, but also giving her space to be independent. It was..." She paused, searching for the right word. "It was beautiful to watch." Michael felt a rush of emotion. "Sarah thinks the world of you. She talks about you constantly at home. She's an incredible kid. So bright and compassionate. She reminds me of..." Ellie stopped suddenly, looking away toward the river. "Reminds you of who?" Michael asked gently. Ellie took a deep breath, then turned back to him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Michael, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you before tonight, but I was afraid." A knot of anxiety formed in his stomach. "You can tell me anything." She squeezed his hand, as if drawing strength from his touch. 8 years ago, I lived in California. I was young, scared, and made a terrible mistake. The world seemed to slow around them as Michael processed her words, the pieces clicking into place with devastating clarity. "I'm Sarah's birth mother," Ellie whispered, those 5 words hanging in the night air between them. Michael dropped her hand as if burned, taking a step back. "What?" The word came out as barely more than a breath. "I know it's a shock," Ellie said quickly, her voice trembling. "When I moved here and saw her in my class roster, saw your name as her parent, I thought it was some cruel cosmic joke. But then I met her, met you properly, and I realized it was a second chance." Michael's mind raced, memories flashing like a chaotic slideshow. Sarah's immediate attachment to her new teacher. Ellie's uncanny ability to understand Sarah's needs. The familiar expressions he sometimes caught on both their faces. "You abandoned us," he said, his voice hardening as shock gave way to anger. "You left a note saying motherhood wasn't for you and disappeared." "I was 22, battling postpartum depression, and terrified I was ruining her life," Ellie said, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "My own mother had been abusive. I was convinced I would damage Sarah the same way. Leaving felt like the only way to protect her." "Protect her?" Michael's voice rose. "Do you have any idea what it was like explaining to a 4-year-old why her mommy never calls on her birthday? Or watching her scan every woman's face at the grocery store, hoping to see you?" Ellie flinched as if he'd struck her. "I've regretted it every day since. I got help, therapy. I became a teacher because I wanted to make a difference in children's lives, to somehow atone. I never dreamed I'd find her again. Does Sarah know?" The question burst from him, sudden and urgent. "No. Of course not. I would never tell her without your permission." Michael ran a hand through his hair, his mind spinning. "I need to go. I need to think." "Michael, please." "No," he cut her off. "You don't get to drop this bomb and expect everything to be okay. 8 years, Ellie. 8 years of silence." He turned and walked away, his perfect evening shattered into 1,000 painful shards. The next morning, Sarah bounced into the kitchen, her eyes bright with anticipation. So? How was it? Are you going to see Ms. Reynolds again? Michael forced a smile, having spent a sleepless night wrestling with his thoughts. It was nice, sweetie. But I'm not sure about seeing her again. Sarah's face fell. But why? You guys are perfect for each other. It's complicated, honey. That's what adults always say when they don't want to explain, Sarah grumbled, pouring cereal into her bowl with more force than necessary. Michael watched his daughter, really seeing her. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile, how had he not noticed the resemblance before? Now that he knew, it seemed so obvious. Sarah, he said carefully, what would you think if I told you I knew something about your birth mom? Sarah's spoon clattered against her bowl. You found her? Not exactly. She found us. Sarah stared at him, her young face suddenly serious. Is it Ms. Reynolds? The question knocked the wind from Michael's lungs. How did you know? Sarah shrugged, looking down at her cereal. I didn't know for sure. But I found an old picture of you and Mom once, and she looked kind of like Ms. Reynolds. And sometimes when Ms. Reynolds looks at me, it's different from how she looks at other kids. She raised her eyes to his. Is she really my mom? Michael nodded, moving to sit beside her. She told me last night. I was pretty upset. Are you mad at her? I was. I still am, a little. She hurt us both when she left. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, stirring her cereal thoughtfully. Dad, remember when I broke Mrs. Chen's special vase last year? The one her grandmother gave her? Michael nodded, unsure where this was going. I was so scared to tell her. I thought she'd hate me forever. But you made me go apologize, and you said that brave people admit when they've made mistakes and try to fix them. Sarah looked up at him, her eyes wise beyond her years. Maybe Ms. Reynolds is trying to be brave now. Michael felt his throat tighten with emotion. When had his little girl become so insightful? She's a good teacher, Dad, Sarah continued. She's patient and kind, even with kids like Tommy who drive everyone crazy. And she always listens, really listens, not fake listens like some grown-ups. You like her a lot, don't you? Sarah nodded. I picked her for you because I thought you'd like her too. And you did, right? Before you knew? Michael couldn't deny it. He had liked Ellie, more than liked her. Their connection had felt real and deep, something he hadn't experienced in years. I did, he admitted. But this changes things, Sarah. Why? She's still the same person. Out of the mouths of babes, Michael thought. Was Ellie still the same person he'd connected with last night? Or was everything colored by this revelation? Can I talk to her? Sarah asked suddenly. Not as my teacher. As, you know. Michael hesitated. Are you sure that's what you want? Sarah nodded, her expression determined. I've been wondering about her my whole life, Dad. Now she's here. I want to know why she left, and why she came back. The park was quiet on Sunday morning, just a few joggers and dog walkers enjoying the spring sunshine. Michael sat on a bench, watching Sarah on the swings while they waited. His stomach was in knots, but for Sarah's sake, he was trying to keep an open mind. He spotted Ellie before Sarah did, walking slowly along the path, her shoulders tense. She looked as though she hadn't slept either, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion and anxiety. Michael raised a hand, catching her attention. Their eyes met across the distance, a current of unspoken emotions passing between them. Sarah, he called gently. She's here. Sarah jumped off the swing and turned, freezing when she saw Ellie. For a moment, mother and daughter simply stared at each other, the resemblance unmistakable now that Michael knew to look for it. Then Sarah ran, not away but toward Ellie, stopping just a few feet in front of her. "Hi," she said, suddenly shy. "Hi, Sarah," Ellie replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for wanting to see me. Dad says you're my birth mom." Ellie nodded, kneeling down to Sarah's level. "I am. And I owe you the biggest apology in the world." Sarah studied her face intently. "Why did you leave?" Michael moved closer, ready to intervene if the conversation became too difficult for Sarah, but his daughter stood tall, her question hanging in the air. "I was very sick," Ellie said carefully. "Not the kind of sick where you cough or get a fever, but sick in my mind. I was sad all the time, so sad I couldn't see clearly. I thought you and your dad would be better off without me." "Were we?" Sarah asked bluntly. Ellie glanced at Michael, then back to Sarah. "No. I was wrong. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you, wondered how you were growing, if you were happy." "I am happy," Sarah said. "Dad takes really good care of me." "I can see that," Ellie smiled sadly. "He's an amazing father. But sometimes I wished I had a mom too," Sarah admitted quietly. "Especially on Mother's Day when everyone else was making cards." Michael felt his heart break all over again, remembering those difficult days each year. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," Ellie whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can never undo the hurt I caused you. All I can do is tell you that I've changed, that I got help for my illness, and that if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your life now, however you want that to look." Sarah considered this, her young face serious. "Would you and Dad still date?" The question caught both adults off guard. Michael and Ellie exchanged startled glances. "That's complicated, sweetie," Michael began. "Why? You liked each other before you knew, right?" "We did," Ellie said softly. "Very much. But your dad has every reason to be angry with me, Sarah. Trust takes time to build, and I broke that trust in the worst way." "But you came back," Sarah insisted. "Isn't that what matters?" Michael looked at his daughter, then at Ellie. The anger he'd felt last night was still there, but alongside it was something else, a recognition of courage. It would have been easier for Ellie to keep her secret, to continue building a relationship with him without revealing the truth. Instead, she'd risked everything to be honest. "It matters," he said finally. "It doesn't erase the past, but it matters." Ellie's eyes met his, hope flickering in their depths. "Can we go get ice cream?" Sarah asked, breaking the tension. "I want to ask more questions, but ice cream makes everything better." Michael couldn't help but laugh. "Ice cream it is." As they walked toward the park exit, Sarah slipped her hand into Ellie's, then reached for Michael's with her other hand, physically connecting them. The simple gesture brought tears to Michael's eyes. He didn't know what the future held. There would be difficult conversations ahead, boundaries to establish, trust to rebuild. But watching Sarah's face light up as she asked Ellie question after question, seeing the careful, loving way Ellie answered each one, Michael felt something he hadn't expected: possibility. 6 months later, Michael stood in his kitchen, watching through the window as Sarah and Ellie planted bulbs in the garden, their heads bent together in concentration. They had established a careful routine: Sunday afternoons together, occasional dinners, school events where Ellie was present as both teacher and a growing presence in Sarah's life. It hadn't been easy. There had been tears and arguments, moments when Michael's anger resurfaced and times when Sarah struggled to understand the complicated emotions surrounding her mother's return. They'd started family counseling, creating a safe space to navigate this uncharted territory. But there had also been laughter, connection, and healing. Michael had watched as Sarah blossomed under the additional love in her life, gaining confidence and a sense of completeness he hadn't realized she was missing. And as for Michael and Ellie, they were taking things slowly. The attraction between them remained, complicated now by their shared history but also deepened by their commitment to Sarah's well-being. They had begun dating again, cautiously, with eyes wide open to both the challenges and the possibilities. Tonight was their first official family dinner, with Sarah insisting on helping cook her famous spaghetti and meatballs. As Michael watched his daughter and her mother laughing in the garden, soil smudged on their cheeks in nearly identical spots, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. Life rarely followed the path you expected. Sometimes it threw curveballs that knocked you flat, and sometimes those same curveballs led to something beautiful you never could have imagined. Sarah looked up and caught him watching, her smile radiant as she waved him outside. "Dad! Come see what we planted." As he stepped into the sunshine to join them, Michael realized that Ellie's 5 devastating words had indeed changed everything, but not in the way he'd initially feared. They had opened the door to healing, to wholeness, to a family reconfigured by forgiveness and second chances. Some secrets destroyed. But this one, painful as it had been, had ultimately created something new and precious from the broken pieces of the past. "We're planting tulips," Sarah announced proudly. "They sleep all winter underground, and then in spring, boom. They come back more beautiful than ever." Michael's eyes met Ellie's over their daughter's head, and in that moment, they shared a silent understanding. Sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings grew from the hardest endings. Sometimes, what seemed lost forever was just waiting for the right season to bloom again. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the complicated, beautiful journey of family and forgiveness. Remember, it's never too late for a new beginning. Sometimes the most painful revelations lead to the most beautiful transformations.